Hi, this is Damian from Diamond21. I want to start off by saying happy 100 years of Black History. I know by the time this video is finally converted and uploaded, it will be March, but we celebrate Black History all the time around here. I'm here to show you how I redid an art piece from 2022 back in my junior year at UArts. Both the sped up version with music and the commentary version are still uploaded on YouTube, and maybe this only the sped up one on the Black tube. But my commentary was super low for some reason. I don't know what happened. Before I get to the speed drawings of the newest versions of this piece, I want to tell you all what my inspirations were for making it. In general, I was inspired by the 1920s era, but most specifically the Harlem Renaissance. This piece was also based on a dream that I had some years back that had my family stopping by a black-owned store that, for all I know, might have been more equivalent to a TJ Maxx or a Ross, something like that, because they had a lot of knickknacks. But towards the front, there were some. They had these boxes that had DVDs and a perfume or cologne inside, depending on the model's image on the front cover. I wish those existed, but alas. I was also inspired off of the Real Comedians Challenge show, which was a program on the former Kev on Stage Studio subscription service from comedian Kev on Stage. I used to follow him before, at least. I didn't like every single episode, but there were some interesting ones like this modeling challenge. So we have Tony Baker in blue, Kev on Stage in purple, violet for this specific piece, that chick Angela red, and Tahir Moore is technically wearing navy, but the character I based him on is wearing indigo for the piece to keep the Roy G. Biv motif. I don't have a video of the sketch preparations I made for the characters. I was going to record myself sketching all the characters' outfits or the characters' poses, but I didn't have enough storage space at the moment. Plus, my desk was getting switched out in my room, so I didn't want to record the old gritty one. We'll start with Roz, our red lady, and she was inspired by that chick Angel, and I wanted to go for a super glamorous singer for her with a deep, rich red feather boa. The feathers I knew were going to be pretty hard to render, even with a brush that looks similar to the texture I want. There was a set of brushes we got from a professor that included a few feathers grouped together like they were flyaways, so I used them just a little bit. I also have some brushes on Procreate that I purchased from Brushes by Vigalia, and she made brushes with different curl patterns, braids, and locks. I don't have all the sets. I only have one of the curl sets and one of the braid sets. I don't know what else she made. And I very seldom use them because, although useful at times, my work loses a certain touch when I use those brushes instead of hand drawing the curls, braids, etc. It really just depends. I'm always trying to make sure my work looks original for the most part and more on other people's brushes. I used Rasuchi's glitter brush on top of her dress, gloves, makeup, and skin like the old version of Roz to keep that glamorous aspect, and she's all glittery and shiny. I decided to make her dress white to contrast with her deep complexion. Her gloves and her shoes are both dark, though. Should I have made all three items white? Not a lot of them have enough white in their design. I tried to do some contrast where I could, but Roz and Vince, being at the ends of the piece, were the main ones I wanted with more white in their clothing for the contrast. And maybe one more could have used it like Gladys since she's in the middle. Other than that, I gave her a new necklace and a different facial expression, more dramatic without the smile. Although the smile probably was a better choice, she looked a little bit more fierce, but I like this other one too. I gave her a microphone because I wanted to play around with props, which coincidentally enough was what the comedians had to do on one part of the modeling challenge, like the pictures I showed. They had to incorporate props. The angel had the boa as her prop, while though Roz wears a boa as well, her main prop is the microphone. Octavia was the orange woman, and she was mainly inspired off of myself, as the last version of her was. Even though I gave her way thicker lips that I wish I had. I wanted to keep her outfit the same for the most part. A very simple overcoat and skirt with the cloche, I think that's how you say it, hat with the bits of fur on the lapels and her gloves. And a little bow on the hat being more of a pale orange versus the rest of the clothing being a bit more dark and desaturated. The main outfit is the charcoal gray, and the gloves, hat, and shoes are the same brown shade. And we have some pearls to complete the ensemble. I can explain how I did the backgrounds while the rest of it plays. I don't have access to Photoshop anymore because when I was in school we had the whole Adobe suite, but now I'm just gonna have to find some alternatives. So I tried to figure out how to do the vignette effect like before. I used one of the default paint brushes on the program, sort of like a paint roller, to form a rectangular color block background. I believe I duplicated that layer twice for better accuracy than just selecting it and making a new layer to color, and both go above the drawing. One is the same color, but I put it on exclusion and lowered the opacity to around 45%. The other layer is selected, but I erase it and replace it with a vignette that I make myself by painting the edges of the selection black and leave the middle in an ovoid shape empty. And I blend it with the gouache brush to make a smooth transition. That layer's opacity is lowered to around 50%. I feel like I overcomplicated the explanation. Yvonne represents yellow, and I guess you could say she's a flapper, but I kind of didn't want that correlation because of certain things that they're associated with. Also, as of the time I was writing the script, I just realized that there's not a ton of pictures on this collage focusing on the long flowy dress I wanted for her. I put more of a focus on the finger waves of her redesign, even if they're rather simplified. That's the main thing I changed about Yvonne. In the original work, she has straight hair with choppy bangs, and I'm not feeling it. I don't know why on earth's name I did it like that to begin with. The finger waves, or Marcel waves as they're called, were a much better choice design-wise. Is she gonna sweat her waves away? Maybe. I don't know. I like the waves better than her old cut. I thought I was gonna like the newer pose that I put Yvonne in because she's clearly dancing and not just standing all weird and waving stiff. But it's just that. Like, she still looks super stiff. I don't know if the problem is that maybe her leg should be, even though I'm not good at doing this, maybe her leg could be swung to the front and the sole of her shoe is towards the viewer. That makes it even more dynamic now that I'm thinking about it. Oh well. The pattern on her dress was excruciating to copy. It isn't quite lace because I don't even have the patience to try to render lace in a realistic way. Well, I did in a video that I never uploaded, but I think digitally it would have made it way more complicated. All these random squiggles and stuff I did on the dress don't even look like a real pattern. And the fact that I duplicated those layers to figure out what colors to go for, whether I wanted a dark or light dress with the dark or lighter patterns. I tried to make the pattern more saturated, that type of thing. In the end, I ended up going for a black looking dress. I think the pattern ended up being a pale yellow, with the fringe being a mix of white and some pale yellow. It took forever to do the pattern and fringe. For the color green, here is Gladys. And I'm actually conflicted with both versions of Miss Gladys. For one, on the original version, I should have picked which element I wanted between the bow tie or the muff that she's wearing on her hands. Now, I probably could have figured out a way to make both pieces work on the character, maybe to take away the fur on the coat or the coat as a whole, like the upper left picture on the original inspo board. And what I should have done was use the muff for Octavia, the one based on myself, but I got rid of the muff altogether. Although the way Gladys had her hands in the muff in the original version made her look older in the way, and I probably should have given her a different posture. But now in this new version, she looks even younger than her original version somehow. And I kept thinking something was off about her new outfit. Like I just threw stuff on her, but I promise I didn't. I wanted to do that pattern you'll see on this skirt on more of her clothes. And maybe what I should have done is had her blazer unbuttoned without the belt on the top of it and match the blazer and the skirt's colors to a dark desaturated green with the pattern being even darker. And the shirt underneath the blazer could be that light green tone that the skirt ended up being. Main thing that's bugging me is her new pose. Because with her legs positioned like that, with the hands doing whatever the mess they doing, she looked like a Monster High character. Both them and even the brats at one point. Like, what were they thinking with these weird poses? There's honestly worse, like in the world of anime and comics. Whoa, I did not mean for my voice to crack like that. Comics, I was trying to say. It's a mess, especially when they get disproportionate, but that's something else. She definitely lost something with the new take, but I honestly don't feel like going back to try to fix her all over again. It already took me forever to write this script and put the video together and do this commentary. This is supposed to come out in February, not March. Our dapper blue man is Bernard, and I based him a little bit off of Tony Baker, who I probably should have provided more pictures of on his board. So I think he pretty much ended up looking very similar to his old design. I just got rid of his chin hair. I also gave him more of a staff instead of the other walking stick. I have no idea what that was at first. Not quite a cane, but on the new one, I put a blue sphere on top of it just for more color. And I gave him a different pose. I thought if one character's in an action pose dancing, I should have another doing the same. Weirdly enough, he looks a bit more like he's doing one of those Baltimore strut dances. I don't know, that's what it looks like to me. As far as his outfit, I probably should have gone with a more tuxedo-like design, but not super traditional. And I definitely didn't want the whole tuxedo being straight black and white. Most areas on the characters that appear to be black and white are just desaturated versions of their respective colors, with only certain accents being a stark white if needed. Although, of course, I use straight black on the line art. That's just a given for my work. His overcoat or blazer, jacket, however it's referred, I gave the double tails to it just to experiment. as I did before, and I made his vest a bold blue with the bow tie being a slightly lighter version of that blue. His top hat is the same dark gray as the parts of his wardrobe with a blue strip of fabric in the middle. Top hats are so hard for me to get right, and I don't have a clue as to why. But I decided to keep the hat tilted on Bernard's head like the old version of his piece. Also considered adding a flower to the lapel of the jacket, but I wasn't sure if it looked too busy or too silly for his vibe. Now, Irving represents my favorite color, indigo. He was based a little on To Hear More, and I decided to make this character like an old school detective. I kept that hat and the main parts of his outfit the same as his old version, but I wanted to add an overcoat. It was supposed to be more like a trench coat, like that sort of archetype of a film noir detective, but it appears to have lost some details. That was by accident. I unbuttoned it so it could move more in the breeze and you could see his hunched pose better. I gave him a magnifying glass up to his eye. It's already one thing because I'm irritated whenever I draw someone's head or face uneven or it looks more pushed up on one side rather than the other, even if they're not making a particular facial expression. Although I've been told it looks okay because not everybody's faces are symmetrical. But my thing is, you really see it here. I don't know if it's just a magnified section of his face that pushes that idea, or maybe if it looks like his head is tilted, although his hat isn't. I don't know. Speaking of his face, Tahir is kind of known for that smile of his, so for Irving, I decided to show some of his teeth. I decided to draw him biting his lower lip, even though this looks like a light skin joke, but that wasn't intended. He, the lip bite looks a little weird in some way. Maybe it could have been more of an open mouth smirk, like he's saying "aha" or like "yeah, I see you." Which, crazy enough, the "I see you" line is what I initially said for Vaughn's old picture. Now, like the last time, I wanted to try to record how I did the pinstripes on his outfit up close, but I guess my videos didn't back up properly, so unfortunately, we're just gonna have to stick with this zoomed out process. Hopefully, everything is still visible. The last character is Vincent, the Violet themed character, based a little on Kev on stage. As I mentioned earlier, I wanted to have more white in his clothes for contrast, so his new take almost looks like the opposite version of his old take. I for sure want to try my hand at redoing the umbrella prop. Umbrellas are something I really need to work at drawing better. Like the image of Kevin that I provided in the mood board, I initially wanted to make the umbrella transparent. The lighting in the background of the picture made it look like it had a color inside, but I think it was clear. But that's something I have to practice before I want to jump to including it into a finalized piece. It would have been too much stress trying to get everything correct because I'm so meticulous and I'm always getting caught up in the smallest details. And it gives me a headache. I did the umbrella tilted again, but to where you can see just a little bit of the metal pieces inside. It was still hard to get right. Vincent is the other one I should have done more of a traditional look of a tuxedo on, but I wasn't even thinking. Really, all he's missing is some sort of a satin piece that goes over his stomach area. I think that is what I've seen before. I thought before when I saw something like that, it was just higher waisted pants, but I wanted to add a little something extra to his outfit too. Like the other idea I had with the flower on the jacket lapel on Bernard, I had the same idea, like maybe I could try it with Vincent instead. But because of the scarf, it would have been a lot going on in that area, so I just kept it a little more simple. I gave him way more interesting shoes too. Here is the final version of the pieces lined up together. And I have this other version with the characters' names at the bottom of their pieces. Now I will show you what each of their before and afters look like. You'll see the old version's backgrounds are way more vibrant than the newer takes, and they're way more messy, where my new ones are super neat. Roz's headband feathers are larger on the new take. Octavia's so tiny on the left version. I should have scaled her down a little bit more on the new, because she's supposed to be me, and I'm short. For the right, I probably could have had Yvonne's legs swing out in the opposite direction, like I said. Yeah, Gladys really looks like I aged her down. That wasn't intentional, especially because I never thought about these characters having specific ages. Bernard almost has the same appearance. I love Irving's new pose, but his hands look like they belong to two different art styles. That was something I didn't mention. And with Vincent, what I especially love is that you can see an emphasis on the thigh, on his thighs in the new version. I don't know if I was thinking about that during the initial sketch process, but it makes him look more realistic. I'd like to thank you for watching. Have a good rest of your day.